Joe Jordan is the head of the CE4 Research Group, an investigative research group that studies the so-called alien abduction phenomenon from a Christian perspective. The research findings of the group, the most powerful evidence in the world today of the true nature of the entities behind the so-called alien abduction experience, have been published in over 37 different authored books in the past 2 decades. Joe is also MUFON's National Director for South Korea and a MUFON Rapid Deployment Star Team member and a member of the MUFON Inner Circle, and he's joining us today. Hi, Joe.
Hey, thanks for having me back on.
Joe, we recently got together and spoke about your new book, Piercing the Cosmic Veil, and we spoke about what was involved in the book and your research, and it was quite extensive and really created a lot of interest out there. And I guess that's what the book was meant to do. It was meant to ask questions of people and then kind of get them to look at the research and do their own research. But how much effort went into that book in producing? In fact, how much research?
Well, it was 25 years put together to finally get that thing put out there. I've been trying to get a book put together with the research for the whole 25 years that I've been doing this. And it was finally last year that it was just like I was sitting at dinner one night with my wife, and we were eating dinner and we were talking casually. And all of a sudden I looked up and I said, "The book's done." She goes, "What book? You're writing a book?" And I said, "It's, geez, I've waited 25 years for this book." And I said, "It's done." She says, "What's done?" And I said, "The book I'm supposed to write." And within 3 months, I had it finished. It just all came together finally.
Wow.
And, I had to look back on that and try to comprehend what happened there. And at any time between when I started and last year, if I had decided to finally sit down and put that book together, I would have looked back at that and said, I wish this would have been in there, or I wish that would have been in there. It just wasn't time. It wasn't finished. It wasn't at a point where it was all ready to be put together.
Right.
And at that time also, I'm sitting on, close to 100 never before seen testimonies that I've been collecting through the research. And I thought, I got to get these out there, in some format for people to see. And I thought I'd put a good portion of them into the book. But the book had a twofold purpose. It wasn't just to get people to read and ask the right questions. It was primarily to be used as a tool to be able to take the research findings and put it together in a format that I could hand it to you, and you could take that information that I've accumulated in that time, all that work, and you could take it and share it with the next guy. You
Right.
know, in other words, I could duplicate myself through you or anybody else because everything is right there for you to work with.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
if you had further questions, of course, you could contact me and I could clarify it for you. But what I'm trying to do is to be able to empower others to be able to take this same work that I've done and not reinvent the wheel out there, but take what's already been done and just use it to reach other people and help other people like I've been doing. I don't claim this in any way. 25 years ago, this was given to me. This piece of this unwanted piece of the UFO puzzle was given to me to take and share with the world. All I've done is what I was asked to do: collect the information, put it out there, and help others get free from this horrible
Right.
experience.
Right.
And that's what I've been doing all along. Um, it's time to be able to get others involved to where they can do the same thing and reach even more people. And
Yeah.
I think it's even more important now that we're getting to this point to where they're talking about disclosure coming down the pike, and I think it's more important now than it ever was.
So, in a nutshell, let's tell the audience what the book is about, what the research is about, for those that may not have seen our first chat together or read the book.
Well, the book's broken up into 3 sections. The first part of the book is my story and of the how I got into all of this in the first place. It takes it from the very beginning to where I picked up the first book on UFOs, coming from no interest into this subject at all. Picked up a book on UFOs and it drug me right down the rabbit hole. And then it was my journey into ufology and how I came across the interesting part of this phenomenon called abductions, my involvement with Muon, and coming across the interesting case of somebody being able to stop an abduction experience, which at that time, back in the mid 90s, they were saying that it could not be stopped. And a lot of people are saying that it still can't, but hundreds and hundreds and hundred cases later, I'd have to say that you need to do your work. Um, it's it's that history of CE4 research. This is the first
Right.
part of the book. And then what I did for the middle part of the book is I knew people were going to have questions. And instead of me just deciding, well, I'm going to answer as many questions as I can in the book, what I did is I have a CE4 research Facebook page. And I've got thousand some followers on the page. And what I did is I offered it to my followers. I said, I'm putting a project together, finally putting a book together. This was a couple of years ago. And I said, I'm giving an opportunity for you guys as followers of my work to be part of the book. If you ask a question and nobody else has asked it yet, I'll give you credit for the question and I'll put your name in the book for asking it. And then I'll answer the question. It may not be me answering it. I may use somebody else's answer, like a peer that agrees with my research, but answers it better than me, more eloquently, should I say. But there will be an answer for the question. And I will let you know that if there's just a flat out no answer because I don't have an answer for it, I'm going to be honest and tell you I don't have an answer for it. I'm looking into it. Okay. But that was the ground rules. And I ended up with about 35, 36, 37 questions before it was over. And they were all good and they were all separate from each other. And that was the middle part of the book.
Right.
And it was very good because these were the questions that they wanted answers to. Some that I never even thought of that they would even ask,
Yeah.
which was really good. And some of them were good enough to where I thought, you know what? I got a guy that's worked with me for years that did a really good answer on that one. And Gary Bates had some good answers in there. Ian Juby from Canada, another guy that's worked in creation science, he did a good one. My buddy Guy Malone answered one of them. Mike Heiser answers one. So there were some good people in there that have worked with his peers.
And were people satisfied with the answers you gave them?
Yeah, they were. Because we've all worked together in this same field and we've really done this deep research for a long time. So they were satisfied with the answers and they know that I agreed with the answers. Otherwise I wouldn't have put them in the book. And then the last part of the book, the third part, is the evidence itself. And I could have put a couple testimonies in there and that would have been sufficient. But I thought, you know what? How many, because I've always asked this at the conferences, I ask people that, when I do my talks, I said, how many testimonies does it take to convince you that what I'm telling you is real? Because whatever number you give me, I can match that number because even if it's a high number and I don't have that many yet, they're coming in every week and they still are 20 years later. I'm still getting testimonies come in. Every show that I do like this, somebody new that's never heard this work is going to say, you know what? I've done that. Nobody's listened to me. I'll share this testimony with you. If it can help somebody else get free, I'll be glad to share it with you. So new testimonies keep coming in and I keep putting them in the database to be able to share. So at the end of this book, I've got over 60 testimonies in there as testimonial evidence that these testimonies can be stopped in one particular matter. Okay. There's no other manner that works. And it's not just that they can be stopped while they're happening. These things can be terminated from the life of these people where they don't happen again. And Nothing, there's nobody else in the UFO realm that can make that claim. There's nothing else out there that works like that. Putting tinfoil on your head when you sleep doesn't work like that.
Right.
Putting garlic on under your pillow doesn't work like that. There's no other name out there besides Jesus Christ that works
Mm-hmm.
like this. Muhammad, Buddha, Krishna, none. There's only one name that stops this experience.
And
And
that's
these testimonies do that, show that.
and that's the whole premise of the book, is that if you think, or if you're being abducted or continually visited and it's not a good experience and you think that you can't do anything about it, your book is telling people, yes, they can do something about it.
Sure. It's a hope that doesn't exist out there for people that are having these traumatic experiences. And I'll have to tell you, because I get a lot of feedback on this one. You made the comment, you were specific about saying people that have bad experiences, meaning that there must be people that have good experiences. Well, we know in the research that a lot of people claim that, well, I don't have bad experiences. Well, in the research, what we're finding is, yes, people have good experiences too, but the information that comes from these experiences, there's communication from these entities to the people that have the experiences. And there are red flags that go up when you start looking at the communication and what's being told to these people. And my partner of 20 years in my work, Guy Malone, this is study, and he really brings this one out good. We've done a 1-2 punch over the years. He'll do his talk on the communication and I'll bring it home with the evidence. But his talk on the communication and the research he's done on this shows you that these people that are claiming they're having the good experiences, actually, when you look at it in depth and look at what the communication is, it brings up a red flag and makes you question, how good is it? Because it's deceptive by far. Everything that they're telling you here is in the communication. They're very insistent, these entities, of making a point that they're anti-God, anti-Jesus Christ, anti-creation, okay? And you have to look at that and ask why. Because if these are beings coming from far off systems somewhere, far advanced systems, and they come to this lonely little planet, why would they come here to bash one belief system when we have so many different belief systems on this planet? Why come here to bash just this one? Because it's interesting, because even though I say there's so many belief systems on this planet, when you really get down to studying these belief systems, there's only two. There's the one belief system that believes that Jesus Christ is Lord, the Son of God, and then there's all the others. But they only come after that one. But at the same time, they all react to that name. That's something that you really got to look at. That raises red flags. Okay. So are you really dealing with a good experience, or are you just being even more deceived? In other words, what we're seeing this as is like if you're watching a TV show, a TV cop show, where they do the little game when they arrest somebody and they're interrogating them, and they're playing good cop, bad cop. One's real nasty to the person. The other one's trying to make them feel real good.
Mm-hmm.
But what are we dealing with? They're both cops. So
Okay.
we're seeing the same thing here.
So then it begs the question, if that's the case and they come here and bash one belief system, I mean, what's the agenda here? Are the people doing the bashing what we term as demons, really demons, and not biological entities?
Everything the research is showing is pointing to an entity that, well, it's a matter of terminology that I'm getting into here. If you start following, if you're following, or if you haven't, start following them. The information that's coming out of the press right now and from our government on this whole disclosure aspect that they're talking about. If you're looking at the news and you're seeing all the stuff that's coming from the Navy and the military of the sightings that they're having with the Tic Tac, with the pyramid, and you look at what they're describing, how these things act and behave. They're talking about them being of high technology. They're talking about these things having the ability to defy physics. These are key things to listen to. They're talking about these things being more possibility of being other dimensional. Okay. And then you start looking at what we're finding in the abduction realm. What we found in the research with the abduction experience is, and I think I talked about this on the first show, is the abduction experience shows to be more of a visionary type experience, not a physical experience. Everything's pointing to this entity behind this being an interdimensional type entity, an interdimensional entity that has the ability, lack of terminology, to be able to manifest temporarily into our physical realm. Okay. Now, if you listen to Louis Elizondo and the talks that he does, he's really putting some pointers out there that needs to be listened to. And a lot of people just aren't picking up on it. And I think a lot of it is because they have a preconceived notion of what they want disclosure to be. And he keeps telling you, you really need to drop that. You really need to be open to looking at this from other avenues. You know, he's giving us every leeway to open ourselves up and say, let's put everything else that we've been doing to look at this and let's give it another view. Let's look at it from another perspective. He's giving us that opportunity. You know, we just aren't opening ourselves up to do it. He's made comments like, is it, you know, there's a possibility these things have been here all along. He's made the comment that there's a possibility that these things are probably indigenous to this planet. You know, when you start putting all of these comments together, you're talking about the same thing that's being described in the Bible. The term interdimensional, if you talk to a Christian's going to say, oh, you mean spiritual.
Yep.
Dimensional, spiritual. Okay. Scientists call it another dimension. A Christian knows it to be the spiritual dimension. We know that we're not alone in the universe. The Bible tells us that God created other beings, but those beings are not physical beings. They live in a spiritual realm. We know that the scriptures tell us, and it gives examples of it, to where they tell us in the stories that they've been able to manifest physically as messengers of God and talk to humans in this realm. Okay. The descriptions of how they do this and the abilities that they have mirror the so-called technology that they're describing of these objects. So I don't believe that what we're seeing is high technology. For a person that doesn't accept biblical scripture, they can only relate to this in terms of science and science vocabulary. So they have to use the word, you know, this has got to be some kind of high technology.
Yeah.
But I believe this is just the natural ability of these entities to be able to take matter and energy and form it on this side of the veil. Okay. There's that term I used in the book.
Veil. Yep.
Okay. They're on our side of the veil and they're able to, they can't create anything. They can't, you know, build a ship and bring it here. What they're doing is taking what's already here. They can form it to give an appearance of whatever they want it to make it appear as. What's the purpose of this whole phenomenon? They're in a deceptive mode. Everything they're doing is to deceive us. Everything they've done is a deception. They're coming here in a guise as extraterrestrials from another world. Everything points to making us believe that they're extraterrestrial biological entities from another world. That's why everybody's expecting that, because that's what it appears to be, but that's the appearance that they've been giving. Look at Jack Vallet's book, Masquerade of Angels.
Yep.
Okay. He knew what was going on here. He suspected this is what was happening. Okay. He knew this wasn't biological entities from other worlds. He was seeing this issue long ago, but people just said, nah, we're not going there. And the reason they don't want to go there is because if you start accepting what the Bible says is real and what God says is real, that means you're going to have to be accountable for things you do in your life. And a lot of people don't want to be that. They don't want to deal with that.
No.
So that's what's going on here. But why are they doing this? That's the big question. Why are they trying to pull this deception off? Well, if you take it back again to scripture, which if this is following the line of biblical scripture, then scripture's got to have an answer for why this is going on. Well, it seems though scripture does. It seems as though this is what is being referred to as the strong delusion. It says that in the end times that God will send a strong delusion, that if it were possible, even the very elect be deceived. That means that this thing is going to be so powerful and so complicated and so convincing that it's going to be hard to distinguish whether it's real or not. That's what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Now, who did I say is sending it? God's sending it.
Yep.
God himself is sending this delusion to deceive humanity. This is hard to comprehend by most people. Why would God do that? Because God's fed up, just like he was prior to the flood, when he destroyed every living thing except one family. He's tired of everything that people are turned away from him. Okay. And he's making a final call. He's saying, you want to turn your way? You want to believe all this garbage you guys are believing? I'm going to give you one last opportunity. You want a lie to believe? Here you go. And only the elect that truly believe in me are not going to fall for it.
Right.
He's letting the demonic realm perpetrate this delusion with their lying signs and wonders. This is the biblical story. If you take this back to Exodus, when Moses was in the desert leading the Israelites for the 40 years in the desert, there's a story in there that is a prophecy that is a foreshadow of this event. Okay.
Right.
There's a story in there. This is thousands of years ago. This was prophesied would happen. It is two prophecies, and it's foreshadowing two events, foreshadowing the crucifixion and foreshadowing this strong delusion.
Yep.
What happened in Exodus is the people were grumbling against Moses and against God. Here they were being fed every day. Every day they were being fed with manna from heaven. All they had to do was go out and pick it up every morning. They were being fed water coming out of the ground in the middle of a desert. God was supplying everything they need, and they still grumbled.
And then the serpents turned up.
Ah, who sent the serpents?
God.
God sent the serpents. The serpents represented what? Death. Because if they got bit by the serpents, they died. What saved them? What was the only thing that could save them if they got bit by a serpent? God told Moses to take one of those fiery serpents and put it on a pole. And if they just looked to the pole with the serpent on it, they would live. That is an exact foreshadowing of the crucifixion. Look to the Savior and you'll live.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be saved from death. Right now, we're at a point in history, in the biblical timeline, we're at a point in history where we're not just talking about physical death, we're talking about eternal death. Eternal death. Okay? This is about salvation itself. God's given us a free hope of eternal salvation with Him, but people are refusing it. That's a lot better hope than what I'm offering of, being free from abductions. He's offering a hope of eternity with Him. But we're grumbling. Everybody's grumbling against God. They don't want nothing to do with Him. They want everything else but.
Mm-hmm.
So here we got these demonic entities that are harassing people. They're biting them, just like in Moses' day.
Yep.
And they're looking everywhere for help. Okay, looking for support groups, looking for quick fixes. But what does my research show? All you got to do is look to Jesus on that cross, and you live.
Right. And because of the climate we're living in now, and the way people's belief systems have completely flipped around, because this is coming, and your research and findings are coming from a Christian perspective, is this a reason that it's being dismissed and causing, I'm trying to think of the right word, consternation, I guess, in a lot of people, because it's coming from a Christian perspective? They just don't want to, they don't want to hear that.
I believe it is. Before I became a Christian, I didn't want to hear that. I mean, I was in that same boat, and people, a lot of people that don't know me, when they hear a talk like this, they're going to say, oh, here's one of those Bible thumpers,
Mm-hmm.
But people don't, but unless they know me and they hear my whole story, and I'll tell you that real quick, I wasn't always a Bible thumper. I was, I was one of the worst of the worst. I didn't become a follower of Jesus Christ until I was 42 years old. I got lots of people still around that know me and my old ways, but I had to make a choice at some time. I finally got to the point where that blinder was taken off. And right now, you've got the truth that's being given to us, and it's being put right there. And you've got to come to that point to where you've got to take those blinders off and see this truth, or you're doomed. And I'm telling you, what we're seeing here is, and I got this feeling that this government of ours knows this truth. The Brookings report it's one of the things that's well talked about in the UFO field.
Yep.
The Brookings report, done back in the early to mid 60s. NASA had the Brookings report contracted by the Brookings Institute. They wanted a report done, a study done on what they felt, this think tank felt that the effects would be if NASA came in contact with any type of extraterrestrial life or evidence of extraterrestrial life. What would the effects be on society? They wanted to be ready for that. So the findings that came out from this Brookings report, and a lot of people have interpreted different ways, but they said that the effects on society would be, very dramatic, and especially on institutions of faith. Okay.
Right.
And that's what you hear over and over and over, is it's going to affect the institutions of faith in our society. Well, if this message can get out there the way I'm trying to get it out there, I think this is going to be the opposite effect. And I think that there's a good possibility that we have people in our government that know this. And this is why that it's being let out the way it is. They're not coming out and saying exactly what this is. And I think this is being done this way on purpose. If you listen exactly what's happening out there and the way these guys are trying to share this information, it's very, very, very similar to the movie Inception.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that movie?
Yeah.
What was the concept there? If you're going to make somebody do something, it's got to be their idea.
Right.
They have to own it. This is exactly what we're seeing happening right now. They're trying to get us to own it. They don't want to be the ones that said, this is what this is. They're trying to give us enough tidbits to where we go, oh, I know what this is. That way we own it, not the government.
Right. Right.
This whole thing smacks of MK12 brainwashing,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's the way it's got to be done. Because if the government comes out and says what I believe this actually is, this whole world's going to go upside down.
Yeah. And at the moment, I mean, we've got the way people are basically being shut up is they're being, you know, with social media being such a powerful tool right now, as people are being shamed, you know, and peer pressured out of kind of believing what your findings are coming up with. So it's going to be a tough road to hoe. But why aren't other researchers reporting what you're finding? Are they seeing and hearing the same thing, or they're just choosing to ignore it, or because it's not sexy enough?
Yeah, that's all of the above.
Right.
I do know that, you know, some of them in the beginning, I found out that we're coming across the same thing, but it didn't fit the agenda. I mean, how far are you going to get it in the US circus trying to share this story, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, not far. That's why I continue to work full time, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, no, you got to toe the UFO line, or no. There's a few people that, you know, have followed into this work and, you know, support this work, but I've been lonely at this, you know.
Yeah. So that means that the response you've had since the book was released hasn't been great, or hasn't been supportive of what you're finding.
Um, Not by peer review, but the response has been great by people that are experiencers,
Right.
the people that need to hear it. And that's what I'm after. I don't really care what the peer review is.
Because I mean, when it all boils down to it, I mean, we're talking about millions and millions and millions of experiences.
You are, you are. And you know, this over 20 years of doing this, a lot of people have been reached, a lot more than I can ever imagine. I go on to YouTube and I just look at all the different sites that have grabbed my talks over the years, and you know, their their sites are grabbing numbers, you know, from my videos that I don't even see their counts, you know. And I snoop around now and then. I came across one somebody sent to me a couple of weeks ago, and I was kind of surprised by it. Um, it was a Catholic priest that was doing a sermon, 45-minute video of a sermon he was doing on my work, and
Right.
he had my website up there, and he starts off showing these people. He says, "I'm going to warn you, this is going to be kind of crazy." And what he wanted to show with these people was the power in the name and authority of Jesus Christ, you know. And I'm looking at this, I'm going, well, this is amazing. And I look down at the counter down there on his YouTube counter. That one video had been seen by 52,000 people, you know, and I'm like, wow. And I didn't even know it existed, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's so many out there like that. You know, I had a gentleman contact me, said he supported my work. He was trying to help out any way he could. And he sent me a video link, and he said, I've been translating your conference videos for you into my language. And he says, I'm Hungarian. He sent me the link, and I looked at it on his website. It was all subtitled in Hungarian, and it had 84,000 hits on it. I'm going, wow, are you kidding
Goodness.
me?
Yeah.
You know? So, it's reaching people, and I have no idea how many people I've reached
Yeah.
over the years.
Well, I mean, what about MUFON? You're part of the MUFON setup. Do they sanction what you're doing, or do they push back on some of the research that you release out there?
Neither one, actually. Um, I've had the opportunity to talk one-on-one with 5 of the past executive directors of MUFON since I've been in MUFON since '92. Even the founder of MUFON, Walt Andrus, before he um, resigned, before he passed away, I had a chance to talk with him. My co-founder of CE4, way back when, he had posted an article on our first website, and he was kind of angry with somebody in MUFON. He posted an article up there, and it got Walt's attention, and Walt called me on my phone. This is when we had before cell phones, and he had
Yep.
called me right at home.
Yep.
And I was like, oh. And he says, can you tell me about this article? I said, well, Walt, first of all, I didn't write it. It was my partner. And he was kind of angry about the way we were treated. And he goes, yeah, I understand. And he says, if you got a moment, can you tell me about your work? And I went through the whole thing, took about 45 minutes. And he says, I see nothing wrong with it. And he says, I'm quite impressed, and that was the first one. And over the years, I've had a chance, like I said, to talk to 5 different executive directors. The last one before the one we got now, Jan Harzan, I was part of a documentary put out by Gary Bates and Creation Ministries International back in 2018 on a documentary that they had put together called Alien Intrusion. And they had it to where it aired at 712 movie theaters across the US all on the same day. And then it went to Australia, and then New
Mhm.
Zealand, and then to Canada, and then went to DVD, which is still on DVD. And you can get it from their website. And awesome documentary, and good 2-hour documentary. Had some great people in there. Norio Hayakawa, Nick Redfern was in it. I had some of my experiencers in there. Some of the scientists from Creation Ministries in there. Gary Bates was in, of course. Myself, Guy Malone, some good people in there. And we asked Jan Harzan, the director at the time of MUFON, if we could use their promotional video for MUFON, because I was going to come across as a MUFON director
Mhm.
in the
Yep.
documentary. I was, because I always promote MUFON, and I'll promote it right here on your show,
Mhm.
because anybody that wants to do real research and real investigative work in ufology, I recommend MUFON, and I recommend their standards,
I'm the same.
you know?
Yep.
So I have no problems backing them and supporting them. So I wanted to do the same in the documentary. So I contacted Jan and I said, Jan, you have a promotional video out there. Can we use it in the movie? And he says, sure, I have no problem with that. So when the movie came out, before it went to theater, I sent him a copy on the DVD to watch. And he watched it and he shared it amongst the hierarchy in the MUFON headquarters there in Los Angeles. And then it came out in the theater. Well, in later that year, I went to the symposium out there uh, in Philadelphia. I met him in Philadelphia for the MUFON symposium, and I had a one-on-one breakfast with him. And he says, "I got to tell you about that video." I
Mhm.
says, "A little bit of flack, did you get?" He goes, "Yeah." And he told me the story. He said the night that thing aired, the calls were ringing his phone off the hook. Members had thought they were going to see an alien movie, and when they got in there and realized what they were watching, they were kind of upset. They thought
Right.
they'd been taken, especially seeing him in the movie, you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
And me being in there representing MUFON and all my gear. And first thing they were asking him is this the stance we're taking? You know? And he said, just calm down. He says, he told him, he says, his research is legit. He's done this the right way. This is not a stance we're taking, but he has every right to share his work
Exactly. Yep.
just as you do. So he stood his ground as he would for them. And it was like, wow, this is great. But he told me, he says, I can't share your work as saying this is what we represent. But at the same time, I see that there's nothing wrong with what you've done, so I'm not going to turn against it. But at the same time, I can't say we support it.
Hmm.
And I was fine with that. And that's the way MUFON's been all along.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as long as that's the way it is, I have no problem with that,
Yeah.
and I support them in every way. It's
Yep.
it's been like a love-hate relationship for 25 years.
I can understand. I mean, I really admire the work people like Kathleen Martin are doing, with the Experiencer Research Group and, the stats and research that they're compiling. But yeah, it's like you, at any opportunity, I'll promote them whenever I can. But what about the CE4 Research Group? I mean, what are the future plans with the group?
Well, we got 2 more books in the work, and the group has grown. The reason I call it group is over the years, we started out as a group, and we started out as a group because the group initially were my members of my MUFON group in Brevard County, Florida. We started out as initially MUFON field investigators that were doing MUFON work, and we decided to go into abductions. And I took the initial field investigators, and we just branched in. But over the years, people came and went, and over 25 years, I've had many people come and gone. But I've always kept it CE4 Research Group
Right.
because I've always had people working with me. But like I said, they do come and they go. Um, I've been there all along, but different people come and go. Right now, I've got 4 good people that are working with me very close. 5 people working with me very close, and this is a really good bunch. And Jason December, I had him co-author on the first book with me, and he's had an opportunity to do some good speaking engagements. He spoke with a conference out in California, on a virtual conference with one of the MUFON groups out there, um, Lorraine Fenton's group. That
Hmm.
she did a virtual conference out there, and he did good with her. And he's going to be up and coming. I picked him because he's perfect for this. Uh, he's almost me younger,
Right.
and if you put us together, we're like father and son in appearance too. We joke about that, and I wanted to be able to make it so that I don't have to be everywhere at the same time. I wanted to be able to not make this just about me. I wanted to be able to make it about the research.
Right.
So I'm trying to make it to where I can train up some people to say, I can't be in Denver. I need you to go to Denver. You know the work, you know the research, you know the testimonies. Go do CE4 for me. Okay.
Hmm.
I don't need to be there. It's not about me, it's about the testimonies itself. You know, so go do that. You're fine. And the idea of getting them to be part of the book gets them the recognition that they need to say, hey, this guy's an author too. You know, he's
Right.
welcome to come here and represent CE4. So the second book is is actually, I'll give you the title for it. It's Unholy Communion: Casualties of a Cosmic War.
Okay.
And all of the people that are working with me right now are former experiencers, and they've got some really powerful testimonies. They were at one time casualties of this cosmic war. They are no longer casualties. They've been healed,
Hmm.
and they're powerful workers to help other people. But the story that we're putting together for this second book is about that whole process, and it's to give people hope. And they'll all be on this second book. So it gives them all that ability to say, any one of you guys can now take off and do this.
Right.
Okay, so
Right.
I'm training them up to be able to do this. But at the same time, they've all got different talents. I've got 2 of them in Australia, one in New York, one in California, one in Indiana. So we're spread out. I've got different time zones we're working with, different abilities they're working with. One's doing video, one's doing Twitter. I
Yeah.
got all
Yeah.
different things that are helping out. So it's
Great.
coming together really good.
Fantastic.
We're just discussing possibly putting together maybe a documentary, ourselves together, try and capture some of this to be able to, get to the church, because the concept here is to empower the church. The church is an army, that if you can arm them with the truth to where they can go out and share it, we can get a whole lot more accomplished.
Mhm.
Because if this is right, if this is what scripture says it is, if my findings are right, if all of this is right, then these people should be acting on it,
Yeah.
but they're not. They're not being taught this. It's like the lost people don't want it, and the church doesn't want it. Nobody wants this,
Yeah.
but yet it's the answer to all of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it belongs to the church. If they're trying to reach people that need reaching, and this is the deception of the end times, then the church needs to hear this. And
Well,
we're trying to
Joe,
make it so that they can understand it in a
yeah.
short, powerful form.
Yeah, Joe, I think sadly though, the church isn't what it used to be. We talked about earlier about people being shamed and peer pressured out of, letting their true feelings known. And I think there are many people that head churches around the country today who are in the same boat and don't want to rock the boat for fear of losing their what do you call it, their charity status, and just too frightened to speak up.
I think there's a way to reach the right people, though. And I think the right people are the ones that at this point may be afraid to speak up, but there's an older crowd out there. If you can show the horrors involved in this phenomenon, if you can really get that across, I'm talking this second book, we're going to really get down and dirty
Mhm.
of what the damage is to these people from this experience. If you can get that across to grandma sitting on the pew, you understand?
Yeah, yeah,
And convince her that, grandma, do you know that your grandkids are involved in this? Do you know that they're opening themselves up to this? You just might wake her up.
yeah, yeah.
That's the one that's going to make a change.
And that's what I was saying about the church not being what it used to be. It's just become too vanilla these days, and a lot of heads of churches and pastors, all they can think of is getting a half-hour spot on TVN and preaching a vanilla message.
Yeah.
And I'm actually pointing the finger at probably the largest church following in the country here, who has said nothing against a lot of the issues that are affecting us today.
Yep.
But we could go off into a rabbit hole here, Joe. But we just might leave it there. I had one question. I didn't know whether you could answer or would want to answer it, but I feel as a UFO believing community, and I mean, I guess we're all fighting for the same truth in the end. But you know, factions within the community itself. Like, do you ever think that CE4 and CE5 could ever come together and work together?
Oh,
That's what I didn't think you would want to answer it. It'd be pretty tough.
oh, that's a touchy one.
Yeah.
If you understand what CE5 is doing, CE5 is initiating contact with these entities. Let me try to explain what's happening there. This is scary stuff.
Mhm.
You've opened a tough one here.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect you to answer it, but
Oh, I'm going to. because this is the one that people need to understand about this one. This is what you're dealing with here is contact deep. Okay. This is CE5. This is people that are in contact with the entities. Okay. This is when people become what they call contactees. Communication is going back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a telepathic communication. Okay. Within these entities. Well, let me ask you something. Put a hypothetical on this. You don't know me. I come to your door. You're sitting watching TV one night. I'm bam, 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 bam on your door. You go and look at the door and you look out your little peephole. I don't know this guy. Bam, 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 bam. I don't know this guy. Make sure the chain's on the little latch and you open the door a little bit. Yes, can I help you? Let me in. Who are you? I'm the police. I don't look like a cop. Here's my credentials. You're going to let me in, right? Yes.
No.
Why not? You're not sure, right?
No.
You're going to validate. You're going to say, let me see that badge and let me go make a phone call. You're going to go through a whole bunch of stuff before you let me in that house, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't do any of that with this CE5 stuff. They don't question anything. They don't question the source. They don't question the motive. These people are allowing an entity to come into their mind and they know who, if its source or anything. That is scary.
Right.
Or
Right.
its ability. If this is what it looks like from my research, that this is a demonic spiritual entity and you are welcoming it into your mind, that's really scary.
Okay. Okay. But from what I can gather, no one's been hurt doing it, though.
That's another good part of this, though. The intent is deception.
Right.
Okay. Remember, let's go back to the name of the game. The name of the game is deception and it's delusion. What was the purpose of God sending this delusion? To make you make that final decision. Are you for him or against him? If these entities are against him, but oh, they're so great to be in friends with, I choose them. Are you in danger or not?
Mm-hmm.
You're in danger of eternal damnation.
Yeah.
Is that danger?
That's something you don't want.
But these people don't know that. They don't even think about that. Well, we don't believe in all that Bible stuff.
Mm-hmm.
These entities haven't harmed us in any way.
Yeah, it's
This is, remember, it's delusion.
and that's the whole that's the whole idea and the whole premise of your research is to expose the illusion.
Yeah.
All right, Joe. Well, that's taken us up to about time, but another fascinating. Right. Joe, let's talk again when the book's released and about the book itself.
Sure, love to.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Joe Jordan of the CE4 Research Group joining us today.